Okay, so welcome everybody to panel number 3, Building Community Support, Navigating Challenges in Family Relationships. We're so happy you can join today. My name's Jimmy. I'm a board member at Emotions Matter, and I'll be moderating today's panel. So while I'm doing the introductions, let us know in the chat where you're joining us from. I'm from Mount Sinai, New York. Let me know in the chat. And also, before we begin, if you haven't done so already, please consider making a gift to fund Emotions Matters. New Hampshire, welcome. To fund Emotions Matters peer programs throughout the year, please text to give or make a bid in the silent auction by clicking on the silent auction button. We have some great items, and this will make a real difference in being able to continue offering BPD programs. So a little bit about Emotions Matter. Emotions Matter is a 501c3 nonprofit organization founded in 2015 to support, educate, and advocate for those impacted by BPD. To learn more about us and our programs, please go to emotionsmatterbpd.org. And so about Emotions Matter's philosophy. So Emotions Matter strives to create a safe, judgment-free space for people with BPD. We accept that there's a spectrum of experiences within the BPD community. We honor where people are on the journey without judgment or assumptions. We encourage people to define their own path towards recovery. We speak as experts of our own lived experience and not as medical experts. And welcome, I see some people coming in the chat. Dallas, Texas, Florida, New Jersey, Philadelphia, San Diego. Welcome. So we have Maria Solomon, who's a senior clinical social worker at New York Presbyterian Hospital in the Payne Whitney Day Treatment Program, and she's also a private psychotherapist. We have Amanda Blachorsky, who's an Emotions Matter online peer group facilitator. We have Rachel Hay, who's an Emotions Matter peer facilitator, and also Brittany Eldridge, who's an Emotions Matter volunteer and an author. So that's really it from me. So panelists, please take it away.
Awesome. I think I'm the first one. Awesome. Welcome, everyone. I just want to say I'm going to speak for everyone here. We are just so happy that you all are here and joining us in this community. These are difficult topics, and we're happy to, share our own lived experiences and stories to, hopefully validate the ones that you have, but also just, know that other people are also struggling, with these things as well. And just to call out that I'm not feeling my best today, and that's also okay. And I think that's when I've joined panels in the past or other groups, it always seemed like the facilitators and the panelists, they always just had everything together. And I was like, I can't relate to that. Like, they just seem like everything's fine. And so I told myself that if I ever became one of those people and I wasn't feeling my best, that I would share it. Even though it still feels like, oh my God, did I really just say that? Like, did I just admit that I'm not feeling okay? But you know what? I'm sticking with it. But just wanted to say that today's not my best day, but I'm happy to still be here, and that I pushed through my own discomfort to still show up. So my story is, I'm going to keep it pretty short, but my entire life I was diagnosed. I'm 27. I was diagnosed in 2016, 2017. Math is not my strong suit, so I don't know how many years it has been. But I was always really confused. I was always labeled as too sensitive. That's what my mom would always tell me. Anytime she'd bring something up, and I'd be like, oh, Mom, I don't want to talk about it, or I'd freak out. She's like, Amanda, you're too sensitive. You can't just avoid things forever. And that stuck with me. Even to this day, I still, anytime, she tells me something, I find myself being like, all right, Amanda, you have to listen, even if it's uncomfortable, even if she's saying something you don't like, because you don't want her to label you as too sensitive anymore. And it's something that stayed with me. And I didn't realize that I had BPD. I didn't realize it was BPD that was, making me have a really thin emotional layer of skin. Like, I felt like I was always being burned all the time. And it was hard in my own family. I have a lot of mental illness, which I think a lot of people can relate to, is that no one else is BPD, but my dad has he's been struggling with bipolar for most of his life. And unfortunately, I think this is a safe space. I can be who, just say, but like, he has not worked on himself in the way that I have. And that has been challenging. So I can't raise my voice, even if it's an excitement. He shuts down, and I can't be my true authentic self with him. And I choose to share that, even though it's very painful for me to share, is that how I have navigated my challenges in family relationships is learning what roles that my parents specifically could play in my life. And it took me a really long time. Something I'm still struggling to accept is that my dad is not my emotional support person. I can go to him when I'm having car issues. I can go to him when I have a question about like the stock market or history, but anything outside of conversations that he's comfortable with, I cannot go to him to. And for a while, I would still do it because I was like, no, he should be able to help me. He should be able to be there for me. And I had to learn that. And I think this also is true for people outside my family, is that not everyone can provide the support that you need them to, and that you just need to find other humans to kind of fill in that gap. And for me, my mom has been that person. She used to be the one that would invalidate me to no end, always trying to give me solutions when I just wanted to vent, when I just needed validation, when I just needed her to say like, wow, Amanda, that's really hard. Instead of being like, well, maybe if you didn't do this, it would have been better. Or maybe like it was your fault. Or maybe like next time you should do. And I would just be invalidated, but I wouldn't say anything because I didn't want her to label me as too sensitive, as like not listening to her. But to give some folks hope is that me and my mom in the pandemic specifically have been able to really work through that, really set boundaries with each other. We learned that we cannot live together. That is something that we cannot do again. We just trigger each other so often. And that we have like little code words. When she's starting to like say too many things, I say like some random blueberry. It's actually a lot of food related things. And she knows to be like, oh, I'm doing too much. I'm not supporting Amanda the way that she needs. But I also know that a lot of parents might never get to that point. My mom she's been really struggling with her mental health the past 5 years and really working on herself. And I know that's not true for everyone. And then with my sister, I was always exploding at her, and only her. I wouldn't do it to anyone else. My mom would be like, Amanda, you're so nice to other people. You're so like, you can volunteer your time. Like, why can't you be nice to your sister? And it took me a really long time, honestly, until I was diagnosed with BPD to know that explosiveness was part of that BPD. And I thought, well, if I don't have anger issues all the time, then I don't have that part of BPD. But it took me a long time to realize I had that, and I had to heal from that and radically accept that I caused trauma in my own family. And that no matter how hard I try, my sister's still going to have that. And that's been a hard pill to swallow for me. But we have definitely like worked through it. And it's over the past 2 years, like doing slow, intentional, just, showing up for her and controlling my anger, or, being really intentional about, how I speak to her. Our relationship has started to heal. But I think if I had to just say one thing that's helped me with my family, and again, I told you my brain is a little all over the place right now, so I'm so sorry if it's not the most concise, best story. Thankfully, Rachel is here. She's my co-facilitator during our spark groups, and she will share a truly lovely story. And Brittany, I'm sure as an author, also has a lovely story to share. It's just accepting, like that radical acceptance is that like, yes, family is your family, you're related to them by blood, but they may not be able to show up in the ways that you want or need them to, and that you can find other people in your life to fill those gaps for you. And that's just as valid. You just need that love and support. It doesn't have to come from your family. That doesn't make you any less loved or appreciated. Like, family doesn't have to be perfect, and that's okay. And yeah, that's all I have to share. I hope something I shared resonated or you were able to connect with, and I throw it on to whoever is following me.
Brittany, I think that's you. think you're muted.
Oh, Brittany, we can't hear you.
Yeah.
No. We see your mouth moving.
There should be like a column on the side. Do you see that? And there's like a little microphone button. Did you turn it on and turn it back off? You want to try logging out and logging back in?
Or on the left side, there's a screw where it says device switcher. It may be your input. You need to change the microphone that you're using. No.
There's also on the top of your browser, there's a little lock next to excelevents.com. If you click that, you may be able to allow your microphone.
Yeah, allow microphone access.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Can you?
Yes.
Okay. Yay!
Late.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Okay. So, all right. So what I was trying to say is my name is Brittany Eldridge. I am a survivor of many diagnoses, borderline personality disorder being one of them. I didn't realize that I had borderline personality disorder until I was 29 years old. I feel as though I've been struggling with borderline personality disorder my entire life. I had some type of disorder personality-wise in my childhood. Never did I know that it would turn into something much more bigger as an adult. So on that note, I wanted to share with you a poem that I wrote because I'm an author. I found my way out of a very dark hole. Many suicidal ideation. I've been hospitalized. I've spent a week. I've been through it all. I've been through law enforcement. I've been through it all. Like I've been through the pits of the very dark places. And so I just wanted to share this poem with you that I wrote really quickly. It's called Defeating Demons. So it goes like this. Have you ever been on your hands and knees, cooped up in a corner, just begging God to give you ease? One thought of existential fears to PTSD to dysregulation that leads to anxiety and depression. I don't want this impression. Hospitalization and ER visits couldn't take the pain away. God, please take me, I'd pray. Through the despair and dissociating, I'd walk in hopes my senses would come back to me. Many signs would come to me through people and signs showing me I could break free. I woke up one day with a purpose to share my story and spread awareness in hopes to make a difference. Miles away from my home, I typed my first memoir on an Android phone to bring deliverance. Demons, they're real, and boy, do they steal. They've followed me into the dark, relationships my sleep, and the time wasted they keep. Each journey in this world is unique, but remember, you've got a purpose. Hold on, come on. Don't quit before your victory has been won. So I wrote that because I truly feel that through the journey with borderline personality disorder, it has been quite the painful experience, to dissociating, to flashbacks of PTSD from things that I was exposed to in my childhood, abandonment from my father, feeling unworthy, feeling unlovable, pushing people away but not really meaning to. And it's been quite the challenge. And I've looked back into my family dynamics and I love them, but I realized that there's a lot of unhealthy behavior, that things that they haven't addressed themselves, haven't done the inner work. And on my mom's side, there's borderline personality disorder, there's trauma. And then on my dad's side, there's bipolar, There's, major depression. So I come from, I guess, both worlds. And I've had a therapist literally look me in the eyes and tell me they didn't think I was going to last till the end of the year. Because, and not that they were trying to be cynical, but the fact that they were like, you are like a ball, like you've got it from your dad's side and you've got it from your mom's side. Like, how are you functioning? So that's why I wrote in my poem that I feel like I woke up September 2019, after I spent a week in the hospital. I was like, you know what? I know there's more people out there like me, and I'm going to spread awareness. And I've been doing events, whether people show up or not. I've been doing events. I've been sharing my story. I've been writing because I feel that it's my way of expressing myself and getting that pain out, but also showing people. And I've actually, at my events, I've had people come to me and they're like, wow, like I couldn't relate. I couldn't relate more. And so I just, it's really hard functioning because not often do I feel like certain people really understand. And, with Amanda, she was sharing that, some people in your family line, may not be able to validate you or give you, the exact support that you're needing. So finding it elsewhere, in the community, which I have truly found. I found Emotions Matter just doing a general search. And, I connected and I'm like, wow, this is the community I need to be part of. To learn more about myself. And there's so much to it. I've been through like I said, the dissociating. I've been through the unhealthy bonds with my family, my mom especially. At this point, I want to provide hope to others who are listening today, to continue educating yourselves and to continue learning about this disorder and how the family plays a part. I know that family, it's really hard sometimes dealing with someone who has borderline personality disorder because you just feel like you're walking on eggshells all the time. But it also, in the same token, where I come from is I consider myself, I have blood family, but I don't have family because in my awareness, the awakening, as I call it, I've been pretty blunt and I've been pretty open with my family. I've written letters about borderline personality disorder. I've done it all. And in the interim, and I don't mean this harshly, it's almost like my family's they've closed themselves and they've kind of, they've separated themselves as well as I have. Because I just feel that there's just so much unhealthy behaviors, promiscuity, hoarding. I mean, all these different unhealthy behaviors that come into play. And it's so hard communicating and trying to have a healthy relationship. It's so hard. And it's really painful because I would love to have a relationship with my family. My sister's graduating next month. And, it gets really emotional. I can tell you that, like with Amanda, today's not my day either. I've been cooped up in the bathroom, to be quite honest. My bathroom is my safe space. And so I've been cooped up in the bathroom the last 3 days. And today I got up to be part of this event today to share my story. So today was really hard showing up, but I did. And so I just encourage everybody that's listening today that's struggling with this disorder. I know it's not a disorder that should be taken lightly. We are brave. We are courageous every day to face this disorder every day. And that from a standpoint of emotional pain, I can say that I bet not one of us intentionally wants to cause pain onto somebody else, but truly the pain that we deal with on a day-to-day basis is it's a hard thing to deal with personally when everything up in here feels like everything is so scattered, and it becomes exhausting every day. So I thank everyone for showing up and just hearing my story. And I just encourage you guys to push on, really push on. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Brittany and Amanda. The closer I got, I had to pull out my fidget putty because the closer it got to my turn, I was like, so nervous. So anyway, but I'm so grateful that everyone is here, that has joined us. So grateful that you're spending this hour with us. I wrote down my story because, as Amanda knows, she mentioned we're co-facilitators. I feel more comfortable when I have a written story to fall back on. So I wrote my story down, and it will sound concise and it will sound probably seamless, but know that there were a lot of ups and downs. And if you're going through a down, I can guarantee you I've probably been there. And if you're going through an up, I can guarantee you I've probably been there too. Today is an okay day for me. I'm doing pretty good, and I'm grateful for the days where I feel equal to the tasks set before me. And I feel like today is one of those days, minus some anxiety, but I'm managing, I'm coping. So really grateful I get to spend this time with you. So I'm just gonna have my glance over here while I read from my phone my thoughts. Growing up, I had near constant anxiety, was very emotionally sensitive, and felt a lot of shame and guilt. I told my parents about my worries, and they talked through them with me, but in the end, it was always assumed that this was a phase and I would grow out of it. In my late teens and early 20s, I graduated from high school and then college and went on a service mission for 6 months. These were very stressful years for me. I had many crying jags where I could not stop the tears and felt stress so strongly that my fingertips would turn blue. My thoughts and heart often raced long into the night, leaving me fatigued each morning. On my mission trip, situations came up which left me traumatized. I came home from that trip not only anxious but deeply depressed. I had no skills to cope with my feelings and turned to maladaptive coping behaviors. I remember sitting in a therapy session once with an old therapist thinking, why doesn't he give me something to do when I'm feeling so off? Something I can do to feel better. To some degree, I realized at that time that I was missing coping skills that other people had. In 2013, when my behaviors and depression got worse, I went to the hospital. As hard as that was, it was a turning point in my recovery. I got the diagnosis of BPD, which led my mom to lots of research. She ultimately found a specialized therapy designed for people with BPD, which is called DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy, and she took me there. I've asked my mom a few times what her experience was like. She's always been a matter of fact in her answer. You needed help, so we got you help. She never blamed me for my diagnosis. She worked behind the scenes for so much of my treatment, calling doctors, figuring out insurance, and the benefits, which can be insane. My dad also supported me. He was actually the one I called to drive me from my psychiatrist's office to the hospital. I've never asked him what that was like, but when we got there, he took over, making sure I was safe and seated. He checked me in and he communicated with the staff for me. I remember my brother coming with my parents to visit me in the hospital so many years ago. It was one of the few times I remember him crying. He hugged me so tightly. My sisters have also been a huge comfort to me over the years. I think probably when I engaged in maladaptive coping behaviors, it was confusing and sad for my sisters. When I was really struggling, my counselor would often ask me how I would feel if my sisters were doing to themselves what I was doing to myself. This often was so shocking that it got me out of my funk and helped me see that what I was doing needed to change. Like every family, mine wasn't perfect. My sisters struggle with anxiety and depression. My brother struggles with anger and ADHD. And I struggle with anxiety, depression, and later BPD. My parents have not disclosed if or what the financial burden of my treatment was on them or the hurt they might have felt when I engaged in maladaptive coping behaviors. The only thing they have said is that they love me and they want me to be successful, whatever that looks like. My siblings have expressed the same love and support, and I have made amends for the intentional and unintentional hurt I have caused them. And I feel like I have a good relationship with them today. And I love how Amanda and Brittany ended each of their messages with one of hope. And I have that same message that things get better. You know, I've learned what I need to do to help myself feel better. I've learned skills. My family's learned skills. And there's just been a lot of, I think I would use the word balance. A lot of balance has returned to our family life. It's not perfect, but when it's not perfect, we can go our separate ways, get the space we need. And I'm just so grateful for my family and that they've hung in there with me through all these years. So thank you for letting me share. And Maria, pass it on to you.
Thank you so much, Rachel and Amanda and Brittany. First of all, it's really, it's exciting to be here today. I feel like this is really such a landmark event, and it's really an honor. I take my hat off to all of you for your candor and honesty and really bravery in talking about your stories. And I think each of you speak to very distinctive and different and similar aspects. Just the way I work, I'm a compulsive note taker. There aren't enough legal pads in the world for me to scribble my notes. So, but mine isn't a sort of cohesive narrative, but more points that I do want to make from the other perspective as a clinician working with people for many years, with people with BPD and their families. So, you know, I work intensively with people at Cornell in the DBT program privately, and also have been very involved in the Family Connections program, which I think is really so vital. But a few things that I want to just put out there. I think one of the things that has contributed in making a positive shift in addressing BPD with the person with BPD and the family is that we now have a lot of scientific information about BPD and what it means in the brain. It has, and I think that that has moved it out of not 100%, but moved it out of the realm of, oh, you're hysterical, oh, you're dramatizing, oh, you're whatever, you're mood, you know, that this is a biological disorder that, as we know, affects aspects of the brain in terms of mood, affect, impulsivity, the ability to problem solve, and therefore function. So immediately when you have a sort of brain constellation of things that affects all these crucial areas, you know, to be able to just understand, that's not a justification, but it means understanding this is sort of the landscape. I also want to address, because I think it came up and each of you pointed it out, families are different. There's no one family. And there are families, and when I say families, I'm using it in the broadest term. And I think particularly Amanda, you highlighted that wonderful point. There's the biological family, and then there's sometimes the family that one needs to create. There's the family one's born into and another family or families that one can create and might need to. And I think that one of the truths that has to be recognized is that there are families who embrace this, who are supportive. There are families who don't, and there are families who take a longer time to do it. Every family has their culture, their history, their secrets, their different thresholds for what is acceptable and not. So I think it's important to recognize there is no one template of a family. And within the family, there are different members. And all these issues can create very different barriers. I think that, as everybody probably knows, in terms of what BPD can do to the family, it's like the family's hit by lightning. There are behaviors, there are reactions, there are all kinds of things that can throw it into complete confusion, fear, all kinds of things for the person with BPD and the family members. And I think that the two areas that can be the most, I don't know what the word is, but difficult, challenging, I think are the areas of impulsivity and emotional reactivity. And when that can be understood, and then if people can be on board to understand where that comes from, to then help and respond to this, that 0 to 100 kind of experience, then I think that's a crucial area. And I think that the most essential tools to begin with for a family are to understand and learn how to validate. Which does not mean it's approval, does not mean it's agreement. It means that layer of acknowledgement. I know you're going through something really painful now. I might not know how to deal with it, but I know it's there. It's acknowledgement. And the experience, I think all of you would probably agree, of all of the things that go with having PTSD can be so isolating, so disconnecting. So it's like you've gone on to another planet. And the other aspect I think that is crucial is education, wherever possible. I can't emphasize enough that family connections is a wonderful educational program, free, and it's now across the universe, from everything I understand, all over, and does offer this education. And I think that, as you all have spoken about looking back and seeing how you've evolved in this journey, I similarly, as a clinician, have said that it's been quite extraordinary. It is extraordinary to see families who might start out. I mean, I could now give 900 examples in a place of such hopelessness, despair, lack of understanding, end of one's tether, and then be patient. I think patience is an important component, that bit by bit you start to learn more, apply more, communicate better, and start seeing changes in ways that look probably absolutely undoable. And I think that willingness is part of it. I always think of it as if for families, it's like you're plunked, suddenly you landed in a country, suddenly you're in Romania, and you don't know a word of Romanian, and you have needs and you have to get things done and whatever. You don't speak the language. It's learning a new language. So I think that that's important. I also think that it's very important to maintain, to be both supportive and very supportive in many ways to the family, the person with BPD, and to also kind of straddle that balance between also keeping expectations and boundaries. I also think that knowing that you sometimes have to pick and choose and know what you're going to get from one family member that you won't from another. I think, Amanda, you spoke beautifully to that in terms of your father. And again, I think what you also spoke to was it's not all or nothing. There are wonderful things that he can offer you. And there's certain things, this is radical acceptance. There's certain things he can't. And you can find that in other people. So I think that these are, to me, some of the very essential parts of it. But I can't emphasize enough, I think, the role of education, understanding it, and probably a first step in terms of validation.
Well, thank you so much, Maria, for providing your incredibly helpful insights. And thanks so much, Amanda, Brittany, and Rachel, for your openness and sharing your stories. This was really great. So for any attendees, if you have any questions for the panelists, please do go to the Q&A tab here and let us know your questions. Just give it one more minute. Okay, so Oliver asked, do we have any Canadian resources?
Not that I'm aware of. I would think, Amanda, do you know if we have anything in Canada? I think maybe if you email info@emotionsmatterbpd.org, they might be able to direct you to something.
I know of a place, I don't know if they just deal with one specific disorder or not, but upon me just doing a general search, there's something called jack.org, jack.org. That's in Canada. I don't know if that would help or not. But.
And Valerie asked, what can, I believe this is towards Maria, about validation. Is there anything else a family can do? Maybe if Maria, you could speak a little bit on validation.
I'm not sure if the question is to speak about validation or above and beyond validation. I think the point I wanted to make that there are many, many things and skills to be learned. I think the first most important one is validation, because that's often a missing link in communications, and that's often where interpretations can happen. And because of the nature of BPD, the efforts often on the part of family members, Rachel, Amanda, and Brittany, correct me if I'm wrong, are often counterintuitive. And so learning how to do something that one might sort of skip a beat about is important. I'm not sure if I'm answering the question.
From my personal experience, validation is magical. If someone approaches me with validating me first and saying, like, I know this sucks, and I know you're having a really hard time, instead of going, well, have you tried this? Have you tried blah, blah, blah? Because in my anxious brain, I have thought through everything. I just am stuck. I'm stuck and I can't move forward yet. So especially when my mom or my sisters, when they approach me with like, I know this sucks and I know it's so hard, what can I do to help you? Usually it's like we go to Sonic and we get a drink. And then once I'm calm and have some caffeine in me, I'm able to figure it out from there. So for me personally, yeah, validation's magical.
I think I would also add to that, yes, and it's also very doable. It's like, you know, you learn how to practice scales on the piano. One can learn how to do it. I think the other thing that can be helpful is for family members to not jump in and think, oh, I know what you should do. You don't use that word. But what would be helpful to you right now? I know that you're really suffering. Tell me how I can be helpful. Engage me in that. Let me defer to you. I'm not going to, you know, rather than listing off, you should do this, go to a movie, do 100 things. What would be helpful for you? Maybe it might just be to just listen.
Yeah.
I also want to add that I think the diagnosis itself for many people is incredibly validating. And I think that too helps family members. Okay, now we know this is what we're dealing with.
All right, great. Thanks so much. We have a few questions rolling in the Q&A now. We'll try to get to as many as we can before the end of the session. Liddell asks, what are some aspects of a wellness recovery plan?
That's kind of like a cope ahead. So that's the term I use, right? We kind of talked about this a little. I don't want to take all the questions.
Well, can I jump in here with a thought? That it might mean, it depends also on the situation, but well, I think I would put it into two categories. I think there are cope ahead. Well, I think they're distinctly different. Wellness recovery might be sort of for more ongoing kinds of management. I think the cope ahead, if somebody is anticipating or going to an event, you know, how can you sort of fast forward in your mind? What are the stressors that are going to come up? Who are the people I'm going to see? What are the emotions and thoughts that are likely to happen? And how can I kind of make preemptive strikes to manage it without resorting to unhealthy, self-destructive, harmful behaviors?
Great. And Robin says, well, first, she requests if Maria might be able to get closer to your screen and microphone. She said a bit of difficulty understanding this morning, but otherwise, you're all amazing and thank you. But then she asks, speaking to the issue of communicating with adolescents and family, either one of the parents who have BPD. So I don't know if someone can touch on that, communicating with adolescents within families.
I guess
I work with teenagers in my job, so I find like, I guess I share this in the other thing I was in today. I don't know if I share it, but like, I don't know if you're referring to adolescents who have BPD or you're the one that has BPD and they're the adolescents, but I find that I am able to deeply empathize with my teenage students just because so much of the emotional turmoil that they're going through is similar to some of the emotional turmoil that I go through, you know, having BPD. So I have found I'm able to empathize and they're able to understand because they struggle so much with the emotional dysfunction. So I will find that like if I've ever told my students like, yeah, like this is what I'm struggling with, or like, yeah, one time I snapped at my mom, I didn't want to, but it just happened. They're like, oh yeah, that happens to me all the time. Because I find they're actually more understanding than some of my like adult friends. I don't know if that actually helps or answers the question, but I will say that teenagers do understand a lot more because they're kind of navigating not the same or but like a little similar to what BPD is. And yeah, that's just my own experience with them.
Okay, great. We'll go to the next question from Zoe. As Amanda spoke of, do you think that the family members who may have their own mental health problems can still benefit from education such as family connections courses?
I would love to just touch really quickly. Sorry, and then I will. But both my parents went to, I don't think it was a family connections, but they did something when I was newly diagnosed. And my mom took away with some things. My dad took away with nothing. Like he has not changed at all. He never spoke about it with me. He never really tried to support me because he doesn't have the tools or resources to do it. And that's something I had to accept of my father, is that he's doing the best he can with the tools he has, and he just doesn't have the tools. So I will say my mom also suffers from mental illness, and she was able to get a lot from it because she wanted to, and she like went into it with the like, I want to be better for Amanda. I don't know if my dad necessarily went in with that desire or motivation. So I feel like having a mental illness does not stop you from getting being able to get things from those sort of education courses. I think it's about the mindset. If someone's going in with the right mindset that they want to come out being a better support for you, then yeah, I think they're going to get something out of it. If you find that that's not exactly their mindset, but maybe they're open, they may still get something. But if they're going in it without the mindset of like wanting to understand more and wanting to, take something from it, then yeah, there's a chance that they really might not benefit from that, and you have to accept that, I think. And that was really hard, and it literally is only in the last few months that I've been really good at accepting my father. It's been many, many, many years of not accepting. But yeah, if anyone else wants to touch on that.
I was going to say the same thing, that I think they have to come from a place of willingness and be ready to look at themselves and make their own changes. You can't force what you want on them. I think family connections would be great if they're willing to do it and to participate. So it just kind of depends on where they're at.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. I'll go to the next question. Have your families come together to discuss the effects of BPD and mental illness on the family experiencing it together? I'm thinking the safest way to do this would be a therapist. I would never want anyone in the family to feel ganged up on, and yet these kinds of conversations as possibly healing. Would love to hear everyone's thoughts.
Yeah, I think the safest way would be with a therapist. And I know that when my parents came to like sessions with me, it was more for something I was specifically struggling with. We didn't really talk about like the effects of it on the family. It was more a specific situation I was going through, but we did it in my therapist's office, and it gave me a safe person to not hide behind, but to feel like I had her in my corner, my therapist, because I just wasn't sure how my parents were going to react in the beginning. And so that really helped to have that kind of impartial third party listen to both sides, and to also remind me of skills I need to use to hear what my parents are saying. So that did help me.
Okay, thank you. We'll go to the next question. Have any of you encountered challenges with spouse or school-aged kids who have experienced so much deep pain from your maladaptive behavior in the past that it makes it hard for you to forge ahead in your recovery journey?
I was going to actually type something to this question. So the way that I perceived the question was carrying kind of like guilt for pain that you've caused onto, it sounds like spouse and school-age kids of their own. So it sounds like maybe, behaviors that, they use to cope that help them survive this disorder, so to say, and kind of carrying that guilt. If I'm, perceiving this question correctly, and please correct me if I'm not, but what I can say is that for my own, I have, participated in many maladaptive behaviors, to the point of even avoiding my own home and moving with somebody else, because it was my way of coping. There's things that I've said and done, and to forge ahead in the recovery journey. It's almost like that little thing on my shoulder that says, well, you should feel guilty for doing all of these things. And it has been difficult sometimes to move forward because of that guilt. But at the time, that was how I knew how to cope with the pain that I was enduring. And it's hard. It's hard. I don't know if anybody else wants to touch upon that.
I'd like to touch a little bit on that, kind of from my vantage point. Sorry. I think that everything you're saying is very true, and I think another part of this is, and it's probably as treatment is more advanced, not in the very beginning part. I think it is important for people to understand that several things coexist, as you all know that, at the same time. One is the intense pain that often leads to the kinds of maladaptive behaviors you're talking about. And the other is the impact of these behaviors on family, and I'm going to kind of include clinicians as well, because I think this is where both family members and clinicians often are in the position of dealing with a situation and needing to, let's say, preserve safety. And so there are times when, and I think that issue of guilt really needs to get untangled, and maybe in these family kinds of sessions, so that it's not to inflict guilt, but it also means one needs to understand that these things can be really scary. And when one is faced with a terrifying situation, particularly when it involves a loved one and possible threats to safety, etc., one might act in the only way they know how, which might not be the best way. And again, I think it depends on where people are in the sort of trajectory of treatment. So I just want to offer that other dimension.
Thank you, Maria. And there was also another question directed towards you earlier. Let me just pull it up, about mentalization. Maria, it sounds like you were also speaking about mentalization to learn how to speak the same language. Could you speak more on that?
I had to unmute to speak. I think maybe it was the analogy that I used in terms of language, and that the experience of dealing with BPD from a family perspective is like a new language and territory, and that it means really trying to understand kind of these different pathways that are existing, and learning then how to respond in a way that is of some helpful communication. I'm hoping I answered the question.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let me go back to 1 second. Brittany, what helped you most to get out of the difficult places and situations you were in?
So there is actually a couple different things that have helped me, and I speak upon things that have helped me personally. But I will say that one is getting therapy for myself. Realizing that I've got a big problem here, and I will say that. Also, support groups have been helpful. I will also say that it has been trying at times educating myself about the disorder, being in the disorder, and trying to comprehend the big picture of it all. I've used different things like Dr. Fox or workbooks and books that I've read about, family dynamics and things, and to kind of have the disorder and try to read about it has been kind of trying at times, to really kind of look at myself in the mirror. And then I've also kind of trauma work has helped me as well, because I do have a lot of trauma that I think has created this or helped magnify this disorder, I should say. So seeing a trauma therapist has been beneficial. Writing for sure has been beneficial because it's my story, it's my journey, and it's almost like I'm validating myself with the work that I've published. I've been hesitant of publishing my books because it does talk about raw things in there. And I didn't want to embarrass my family, but this is what happened to me. I can't make this up. So another part, and I don't want to push like religion or anything of that matter. This is for myself. So I struggle with feeling worthy. I struggle with feeling loved, and it has literally left me in some very risky situations. And because I was trying to fill a void that was so empty. Chronically empty is a feeling of, borderline personality. And so what I've relied on is my faith, is not necessarily, study religion, but to realize that there is a God, there is a creator that loves me and loves my family too, as hard as that is to kind of mind adjust. But to realize that no matter who, shows me that I'm unlovable or I'm unworthy or this or that I am still loved and that I am still worthy. And that is the way that I've kind of incorporated my brain, because I could be sitting here with no one, but there is still someone that loves me. And that has literally helped me, walk every day, when I felt like I couldn't walk at all. So those are some things that have helped me. Meditating, sitting and just kind of taking it one moment, one day at a time, because of course your mind can wander. So that's what has helped me, is just kind of, and then when the anxiety comes from the emotions, grounding. So I like to feel the ground beneath my feet. Is it soft? Is it warm? Is it groovy? To help me bring myself back into my body, because a lot of times I feel outside of my body. So those are things that have helped me. I don't know if anybody else has, some suggestions, but.
Well, thank you, Brittany. Thanks so much. Well, we've reached the end of this panel, but if you have any other individual questions that were not answered, you can connect with our presenters in the People Profiles Engage button on the left side of the panel. But on behalf of Emotions Matter, I would really just want to thank all of our attendees and our panelists. Great discussion. Thank you for all sharing your stories. And there are resources which are downloadable links related to this topic at the end of the screen. And also, don't forget to check out the silent auction and text to give. So thank you everyone so much for attending, and thank you to our panelists.